Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of Big Sound Small Town, the podcast that spotlights the talented and diverse musicians in small towns and communities. This season we're branching out to include the community of people who make it possible for musicians to be able to perform their music, the producers, the recording engineers, the venue owners, and many others, and as always, the small town musicians. Remember, small town doesn't mean small talent. Hear their stories. I had been hoping to get Zack on the show for a while because Zack's music is so different than any other guest I've had. And by chance, he was here at Christmas to visit his parents. And on the way to the airport to catch a flight back to England, he actually stopped by the Earl Scruggs Center and took some time to do an interview with me. And listen to it because it's very good. And he's a great performer, and I wish him well in England. Okay, I'm back here with Zack, and he is living in Chicago now. And
actually, I'm living in London.
Oh, no, at the point of the story here.
Oh, yes.
We're in Chicago. We ain't got to London
yes.
yet. Yes, we're going to London, but so we're there working on a master's, singing all we can. This is something I'll bring up. So did some kind of rock and roll thing happen for you there when you were living in Chicago?
Yeah, so it was one of those times when like the backup singing came back into my life, which has happened a couple times. I did right when I got into Chicago in the first couple weeks, I was asked to audition for an off-Broadway revue that actually aired on PBS. That was all like Broadway,
right?
Like medleys put together and things like that. So I got to be a fun like backup singer for this thing. And then when I graduated from my master's degree, the Rolling Stones came into town.
Yep.
And they were on their 50 and Counting tour. And as a surprise finishing act, they had hired choirs in every city that they were touring in. And so I got to sing with the Rolling Stones, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet.
It was one of those exhilarating experiences, especially in Chicago, because the Rolling Stones consider Chicago as like their American home. Right. It's where they got their name.
Right.
It was also Mick Jagger's 70th birthday, so that was kind of fun to get to sing Happy Birthday to Mick Jagger.
Now, how did a rehearsal go for that? I mean,
it was very fast. And that's one of the things, especially as you become more of a professional singer. You kind of go from just doing music for fun, and you perform whenever you feel like it or whenever you feel ready. Mm-hmm. And then in college, you have more of a deadline. Right. And then as a professional singer, you're lucky if you get a full run through. Right. And that's what happened. We learned the music. We were sent the music. We had a rehearsal, or we were prepared by a choral director in Chicago for one rehearsal, and then the next day we showed up at the United Center, and we got a run through.
Oh, you did get a run through
with the band, and then that was it. We then performed 3 shows back to back. But
were these? How many songs were we on?
Just one. It was You Can't Always.
Yeah, I figured that's what it was going to be, but that's really cool.
Yeah, it was fun because it also blended. That song blends 2 different things, because you start off as like this British boy choir kind of sound, and then all of a sudden it becomes a gospel medley at the end. Yeah, and that was it was one of those kind of full circle moments for me. I'm here and I'm doing this classical thing at the beginning, and then all of a sudden I get to sing as a gospel singer, which is what I grew up doing,
yeah,
and
exactly.
how I really express myself as a singer.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So see, I mean, and that's another thing. I think people think, okay, you know, he's off singing something that's not pop or rock, but then opportunities come along. I mean,
Right.
I mean, being a professional singer, I've known professional backup singers, you know, who have sang all kind of things that did not, was never their intent. It just fell the way it did,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And some of it good and some of it
Right,
bad,
right,
you know?
right.
So, and even commercials,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, yeah, so.
I was on a Big Lots commercial.
Yes, I mean, you know, and that's another thing. They see you up there on a big stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I sang a Big Lot commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, later that summer, I did my first Europe tour as a soloist.
Oh, okay.
So I toured singing Haydn's Creation in German, which is about 3 hours of German in Germany. And that was when all of my languages started coming together. You know you've done a good job when German people come up to you afterwards and they just go straight into German.
Oh, yeah.
And they think that you're the German singer.
Right.
And I mean, my name also kind of
True.
helps
It
with
it
that.
does.
It
Yes, it
confuses
does.
people
Yes,
more
it
than
would.
anything.
It would, and that works well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting experience of really communicating in another language and having to communicate in another language.
How scary was the first show?
It was quite nerve-wracking. Because it's one of those things of you do it, and especially in America, you're trained to do all of these languages.
Right.
You're graded by Americans.
Right.
All of your teachers are American.
Americans, yeah.
And maybe they speak the language, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's not their first language.
True.
And then getting into Germany and realizing, oh, I can actually do this.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
I guess after the first one, it became pretty easy.
Yeah.
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 It's the
And
first
also, like, living in Germany and being there for a while, I just got used to the language, and you start hearing things in a different way.
Right,
and
yeah.
You're interacting with people, and so you're actually using your language to communicate,
Right.
not just sing.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting.
Where did you spend most of it? Was this based somewhere in?
No, it was a tour.
It was a tour.
So I ended up touring 5 summers in Europe as a soloist, about 4 to 6 weeks each. And mostly in Germany. The conductor that I was working with was German.
Yeah, that's another thing I was going to ask you about is the conductors.
Yeah.
I'm sure that has a lot to do with every part of your singing.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I guess you have some guys that maybe that you don't get along with. I mean, conductors can be a little, you know.
They can be. I haven't really had many issues with that.
That's good.
Some people really do clash, and their personalities clash. But there also is just this feeling of professionalism. Like this is your job, and your job. You are hired by a company to be an artist, so you are bringing yourself to the table, but you have other people who have artistic visions as well. And hopefully they're good colleagues, and you can work together to create something that really works well.
And I guess it does come down to parking some egos at the doors sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, and is there a pecking order? I mean,
it is one of those to give you a little bit of like behind the scenes. I mean, the conductor sets the tempos, and he is in front of the orchestra. But as a singer, you're the soloist, so the orchestra is also trained to listen to you. Mm-hmm. And there is this like invisible thread kind of thing that you can pull a little bit, the conductor can pull a little bit, and you hope that it never snaps.
Yeah, I understand. That's good.
So, but you could just completely derail a performance by just picking your own tempo or doing your own thing, and you end up dragging the orchestra with you with the conduct, and then it becomes a fight. And you can actually feel that.
Oh, I'm sure you can.
When you're like listening to performances, you're like, there's something going on that's not, something's not right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But your goal is to not have that to happen.
Well, that becomes just, as with anything, being a professional and keeping it all at a professional level, as opposed to, we're going to do it this way.
Right, right. And at the end of the day, it's more about the audience than it is about you. And the more that you make it about you, the less that you touch and affect your audience.
Right.
And you have a lot of people who are coming for an experience, and some of them it's their first experience, some of them they've been going their entire life.
It's their love and passion.
Right, right. And so you can easily lose the main reason that you're there because all that you're thinking about is yourself. Or you're thinking about, I'm going to show so-and-so that I can do this, or... And nobody wants to see a power struggle.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because it is a performance also. Beside the musical part of it, it is a performance.
Yeah, and there's this magic that happens in live performance, especially when the art is so great that it transcends language. It transcends so many things, and it unites people in a really incredible way. And those moments that happen, the audience is just as important as the performer.
True, they are. Yeah.
And the person who's playing, 15th violin all the way in the back is just as important as the concertmaster.
Right.
And when everyone is in that space at that time, and like hearts actually start beating together, it's this kind of sacred space that's created. And your goal is to create that space every time that you're on stage. And so it's one of those weird things of being a performer where who knows what's going on in your life.
True, you don't know that stuff,
You might be exhausted. This might be your second performance of the day. This, your kids might be doing something crazy at home. Like, who knows what's happening?
Know. Yeah, you don't know.
But your goal and the part of the professionalism is that you kind of check all of that at the door, and you try to create that environment every single time.
A consistency in the work. I mean, particularly on a tour. I mean, do you have some nights that are just better than others?
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you do. But it's about an overall consistent product, I guess.
Yeah, I think the touring was interesting. One of the tours that I went on was Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, which is just, it's really difficult vocally. And I had to perform it 15 times over about 30 days, so it was almost every other day that I was singing just these really loud, high passages. And some days were much better than others.
Yeah, true.
And you hope that, like, you can get through it as best as you possibly can.
Yeah. I mean, do you wear out? I mean, not wear out. Do you grow weary of it after, say, 13 days, 12 days?
Sometimes, you kind of just, you want to do something else.
However, you are living the life, you realize.
Right,
which does make it a little easier.
Right.
I mean.
And that was one of the things, was all of the places where we were performing, concert halls, festivals, things like that. Sometimes that would be the inspiring
True, I can see that. Yeah, this is true. I mean, I'm sure you see some.
I'm exhausted, and I've been traveling all day, but now I have to, like, sing, and I have a new conductor from that town.
Yeah.
And you're just tired, but you still have to perform, and you still have to think about what you're gonna do.
Right.
And a lot of that's just training.
Right.
There's this thought that, you're just really talented, and so that's how you can do this.
I mean, I think that's what people think about music in general. Right. Is that, I mean, they don't see, and that's what kind of this is about. People don't really see what artists of any type go through to get to where they are. And I guess something like a hall or a venue can totally change, and even an audience, I guess, your whole take on the night. I mean, you know, and your performance.
Yeah, and especially as a singer, and especially as an opera singer, being unamplified, your body is your instrument.
True.
And so if you're tired, your voice is tired, your body's tired, everything's tired, but you still have to do really Olympic stuff. I mean,
you do.
You're singing, especially with like a Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Usually, the orchestra's 80 to 100 players.
Yeah.
The choir is usually mammoth.
Right.
So sometimes the choirs I was singing with were like 150 to 200 people.
Wow.
And I'm having to sing over all of that.
Mm.
So
do you have problems with your voice ever, or is it pretty?
I have had.
Really?
I have had some vocal issues here and there.
Does that have something to do with overuse or fatigue maybe?
Yeah.
Does weather affect yours?
Overuse. Weather can. I mean, anytime.
It's just like any instrument.
Yeah, it's just like any instrument, but it's also, you know, if you get a cold as a regular person, just think like I'm a regular person too. It's just that I now have to sing through all of that.
Does that affect your range?
Yeah, I mean it can if I actually lose part of my voice, but it hopefully not. I've had to sing a lot sick.
Yeah.
One of the operas that I was in Chicago was a 2-man opera called In the Penal Colony by Philip Glass, and on opening night, I had the flu, and I actually don't remember that performance. I remember being home afterwards and sitting on my couch, but the director of the company actually like put me in a cab and sent me home after the performance, and I don't really remember it. But it's kind of one of those things where you hope that you've trained your body well enough to just do it.
Yeah.
And
in your case too, you can't. Okay, I'm feeling bad tonight. I know I can't reach. I can change my key. You know, I can sing it a step down tonight.
Right.
You don't have that option. I mean, you know, no. I mean, you've got to go out there and do it the same way each time. I mean, I can drop mine a step because I'm playing wherever, and I know I can't get there tonight, so I can drop it.
Right.
But,
right.
You know.
And that's also one of the differences between classical musician and popular musician.
Right.
It's, I mean, you have set music.
Yeah.
There are things that you can change and things that you can play with, and depending on the style, things you can do with it. But you really
pretty much you're
set.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
Everyone else has a certain key, and everyone has to be playing in the same one. So
I mean, not a lot of improvisation.
Yeah, no. I haven't really had issues when it came to like the high notes and things like that. That was just something that when I actually figured out how to do that, it just like locked in.
Oh, that's great.
In my body. Because I actually transitioned from a baritone to tenor. And when I started singing at Crest High School, I was a low bass.
Oh, really?
And so this kind of weird thing happened where my voice just dropped and then started rising and went up from there.
But I guess you still have that being the case, I guess you still have a pretty large range, vocal range.
Yeah, I do. A lot of the work that I kind of fell into again was modern compositions, which require the singer to just do really out there stuff.
Right.
When I made my Chicago Symphony Hall debut, I was singing this piece by Jacob TV that required the tenor soloist to go down to like a low A and all the way up to a high D.
Yeah, that's a pretty big range. Yeah.
And a lot of composers are trying to test, what's possible in the voice.
Sure.
And if they have someone who's able to do that, they'll compose for
Something
that.
for that, right.
And so in a lot of ways, I was lucky to have kind of grown up that way.
Sure.
And know what it's like to sing as a baritone.
Right.
And still every once in a while need to use that knowledge.
Right. But
then also have the upper range that's required
Sure.
for a lot of modern composition.
That's great. All right. All right, Zach and I are back here in the Earl Scruggs Center, and we're touring solo around Europe. Now, you're coming back to Chicago. So what happens? I mean, you come back to Chicago, you wait till the next tour comes around. I mean, explain how this works.
Yeah, so after my master's degree, I worked as a professional singer full-time for about 3 years, which was always a struggle because you go through times of a lot of work, you go through times of no work.
Sure.
Sometimes you go through a lot of times of a lot of work but no pay.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's a musician.
Right. Not the most stable life.
No.
And then my last summer tour that I did was also my longest. I think I was on the road for about 3 months.
Yeah.
And living out of one suitcase, really only being in like one place for 2 to 3 days at a time.
That is hard.
And preparing a lot of music. I was on a tour in Europe for about 6 weeks, but then I also had some recital work that I was doing. I was singing in festivals here in the States. And I got to the end of that, and I was just tired.
Yeah.
Really having no stability, still just making ends meet, but singing a lot.
Right.
It's one of those weird things. I was singing for like a German prince.
Right.
And in one of the concerts, and I'm like a guest of his at the castle, but like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I make minimum wage.
Yeah.
I'm below the poverty line.
But here I am with
But I'm here like
with
having
royalty.
dinner with like a German prince. So it was one of those just weird things of, I had also, right out of my grad school, started an ensemble called Fourth Coast Ensemble. And it was a huge passion of mine because as a solo singer, you lock yourself up in a room and you're practicing all the time, and you really don't see other people until you start working on the actual process of an opera, or you start touring with other soloists, or you so it can feel lonely.
Yeah.
And so a part of Fourth Coast Ensemble was there's this wealth of amazing music out there for 4 voices.
Right.
And so we decided to start that, and when we started it, I don't think we knew that we were actually like starting a business.
Right. And
that we were going to go through a huge learning curve when it came to actually starting our own company. Sure. And it grew a lot, and I learned a lot as an arts administrator. And I also learned a lot about myself in that I enjoyed making opportunities for other musicians.
Yeah.
And, it can feel very narcissistic. It can feel like you're always pouring into yourself.
True.
And so when I came back from that last tour, again, falling into something, about a week back, I had been working in the ticket office at the Lyric Opera House of Chicago, just part-time in between gigs to kind of make ends meet and things like that. And my boss came to me and just said, hey, there's this job opening in the development department to do some fundraising and things like that. I've put your name forward because they need someone to start as soon as possible. Right. And you have an interview tomorrow. And if you want to stop, then we'll say no. But it is a great opportunity. I think it would be a good fit for
Right.
me. And I listened to her sage advice, and it was also just that it was that time in life where I was feeling like I needed a change, and the change needed to be a lack of change.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I do. Yeah. I
Yeah.
understand
Instead
it.
of like waking up in a different country every day. So I interviewed for the job and felt like it was an incredible opportunity for me to learn more about the music business, for me to take a lot of the skills that I had learned from building this ensemble,
Right.
but then also to learn about the music business to then apply
Sure.
more for that ensemble. So I ended up taking the job, and as a part of that, I ran the board of directors at Lyric Opera, which was an incredible experience just in business in general.
Oh, yeah.
But then also doing it for an opera company and doing it for something that I really loved
Right.
was great. And to see that grow and
Yeah.
to learn about systems and all of those things and how to relate it to music.
I mean, it almost goes back to part of your early music education in a way that it's not performance, but it's back to probably your original mission, maybe.
Yeah. And also, I loved math.
Yeah.
And I had played around with being an attorney. And so it was a nice way for me to actually work with
Right.
attorneys, and both on the fundraising side, but also on the business governance
Sure.
side. And to see the music business in a incredibly high level.
Yes.
I mean, the Lyric Opera of Chicago is one of the largest opera companies in the world, and to see how they operate and to learn all of that.
That's fascinating to me, actually.
Yeah. And to also, I also did some artist relationship kind of thing where I was a liaison between an artist and a donor. So I had the opportunity to work with some of the world's greatest opera singers, and just to see how that works.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you get to that high of a level, it's the business is much more than just standing up and singing.
Yeah.
And there's so much to it beyond just the voice and beyond the talent.
Sure.
So, and then from there, I've just recently moved to London, and now I'm the general manager of City Music Promotions, and we promote and produce over 130 to 150 concerts a year.
Wow.
Of classical music. So I just finished a Scotland tour with the Piccadilly Sinfonietta, and came here for Christmas.
Oh, that's great. So the future looks bright.
Yeah.
Well, you spent time in Europe, so I don't think it's much of an adjustment for you to live there, is it?
Not that much. Honestly, sometimes I forget that I live in London.
Right.
So a lot of my bosses or the conductors I was working with in
yeah.
Chicago were British.
Oh, yeah.
And so there are times when I come out of a meeting and I just kind of forget that, oh yeah, I live in London now.
London, Chicago,
it's big city.
We're big city.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, different but big.
Right.
So, well, it sounds like the future's real good.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And how much singing are you doing these days?
So I'm still singing. I'm kind of giving myself some time to figure that out. One of the things that I really love, and so my postgraduate degree is in art song.
Okay.
And art song really is about telling a story.
Sure.
And it's something that can be done at any time. I kind of view it as like reading a good book. You can do it for your friends, and a lot of art song came from that. It came from Schubert writing songs and the local singers from the opera house coming over and friends gathering in a parlor and reading through this incredible music.
Right.
And so I kind of view that as like what I want to see next for my career. Is actually not really so much of a career per se, but just enjoying the music and performing for friends and living the music. Right. And I also love singing in choirs, and so in England is a huge choir place, and one of the churches in London, they have a monthly service kind of for former professional singers, that you can come together and do an evensong, and they call it Evensong for the City. And it's just really interesting because you have a whole bunch of people who grew up singing, and many of them had sung at a professional level, but they are now doing other things. And they just want to come together, and you have about like an hour to rehearse, and then you do this service of pretty difficult music. That's good. And it's fun and challenging and rewarding.
Definitely, you have to live in big cities to have that.
For classical music,
Yes, for classical music, Well, you actually did it in Charlotte in a different scope, but same type of thing, different music, different perspective. But
and I think that's something that, there's always this question of the divide between classical music and pop music, where it's all communication, it's all human, it's all, some of it's written down in a specific way, some of it's not written down in a specific way, but there is this universality to it. There's it's all about the human life, the human connection, the human story.
It's the universal language, music. Every culture in any place in the world, music is a common link. Maybe not the same, but it's a pretty common link.
Yeah, and there's something about making music that connects you to yourself.
Oh, it is, yes.
But then it connects you to other people as well.
Well, I know that you have a plane to catch, but I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to come and do this.
Yeah, this is a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm here with Zack Vanderburg, and he has graciously considered to sing a song for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
All right.
This is one of my favorite art songs, and when I heard it the first time, I just fell in love with it. And it's in German, but it's the translation of it is. Oh, beautiful art, how often when times were dark, have you created a ring around me that reminds me of better times. You have put love into my heart. You have brought me into a better place, and thank you for that. So this is An die Musik by Schubert, and I'll just sing the first verse.
Sure.
Du hohe Kunst, im wie viel grauen Stunden, wo mich des Lebens wilde Kreis umstrickt, hast du mein Herz zu warmer Lippen zonden, hast mich in eine bessere Welt entrückt, in eine bessere Welt